agenda is approval of minutes. You've received those over the course of several days, maybe more than days. So do I have a motion to approve minutes? Yes.
So move.
Thank you. Motion from Senator Petty, second from Senator Sykes. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. The motion passes. Thank you. Committee, what we have before us is discussion and possible action on bills previously heard. We have three separate bills before us. House Bill 2039, which is with regard to the American Civics Test. We have House Bill 2085, which is creating the Students' Right to Know Act. And we have House Bill 2287, which would be establishing the Kansas Promise Scholarship Act. So do I have a motion from someone that wants to get us started? Thank you. Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move that we remove the contents of House Bill 2287 and insert Senate substitute for Senate Bill 43, which is it's the Promise Scholarship Act.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Senator Dietrich. I have a second from Senator Petty. And for those of you that are listening and for my senators that are new to this committee, what we are doing is that lovely phrase, get and go. So the recommendation is to pull the House version of the Promise Scholarship Act, which is HB 2287, and instead put the Senate version that we not only passed out of committee, but was passed by the Kansas Senate on the floor. So is there any discussion about that? Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this. I think we did a lot of great work on the Senate side, and I look forward to moving this out of committee. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Senator Straub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could somebody go through the key differences between the two, please?
Yes. Would our revisor like to do that? I can step through some of them, but why don't we go ahead and just have our revisor give that 3,000 foot view from it.
Hey, Madam Chair, if you give me just a second, I kind of made a quick chart for myself and I'll pull it up and go through those differences.
Okay, sounds great. Actually, while we're waiting for that, I'll just make a correction. I did misspeak. Our version passed the Senate floor last year, went into conference and was a part of what we conferenced and got vetoed by the governor. So we've been holding for the House version for this year. So Tamara, do you have that comparison?
I can't seem to find it, but I'll do what I can from memory.
Okay.
So a few of the major differences. First of all, the caps are a little bit different. The appropriation cap in 2287 is 10 million. In Senate Bill 43, it is 6 million. A second difference is that in 2287, the bill allows the Board of Regents to designate those scholarship eligible programs to correspond with certain identified job fields and pathways. Whereas in substitute for Senate Bill 43, those programs are listed in the bill already, and they include the information technology and security, the physical and mental health care, advanced manufacturing and building trades, the early childhood education and development. Another difference is that there is a need-based element in Senate Bill 43 that is not in 2287. And finally, 2287 only requires a person to work in Kansas after they graduate for 2 years, whereas Senate Bill 43 requires them to live and work. And then finally, 2287 also contains a moratorium on the program that would start in 2026. Senate Bill 43 does not contain any such moratorium. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Senator Petty.
Madam Chairman, I seconded a motion that I wanted to make sure what I was seconding a motion for substituting the contents of Senate Bill 43 as we worked it in this committee. Thank you.
Correct. I would add a few other differences between the two. The Senate version takes it from someone that has graduated from high school. It also includes what we would consider an adult learner. It also has that provision. So anyone that has been in foster care, even if they didn't age out of foster care, but if they were in foster care in high school, they would have this as an opportunity for them. We do provide guardrails for income, and I think that that's one of the things that we heard in testimony from Blake Flanders, Dr. Flanders, was the concern with the House version. Anyone that's graduated from high school or within a year of graduation from high school or completing what is essentially that GED, regardless of what their income level, would be eligible for this. Whereas the Senate version puts guardrails so that it would have a ceiling as far as what that family income would be for them to be eligible for promise assistance. With regard to the regents identifying 10 programs, there is a concern that it would be just 10 specific programs, whereas the Senate version is program areas. So when we talk about manufacturing, each community college, as well as our technical colleges, or in some of the other areas, there might actually, the community college might have 3 to 6 or 8 when we're talking about that construction area. It could be plumbing, it could be electrical, it could be welding, it could be a variety of different certificate programs. So it wouldn't necessarily limit, and it would give, from a regional standpoint, I know that we've had testimony not only in this committee, but also in taxation as far as the desire for opportunities to be for the aeronautic area for training down in the central southern portion of Kansas. And this would allow for that. Committee, yes, Senator Straub again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You said those program areas are listed. What were those again? I know they're listed in the bill, but.
I'm sorry, what are listed in the Senate version?
Yes.
We'll go ahead and have Tamara read that list for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for those of you who have the bill in front of you, it's on page 2, starting in line 8. Information, technology, and security, physical and mental health care, advanced manufacturing and building trades, and early childhood education and development.
Senator Straub, follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And who originally determined those areas of study?
Those broad areas came, I believe, as pretty much a consensus from last year with regard to, we had the community colleges, the technical colleges, as well as the private not-for-profit colleges, as well as the Regents institutions. Part of that opportunity is that a student could bridge, and so the example was made with regard to if a student were to, through the Promise Act, let's say they were to earn the LPN or perhaps the Associate's RN, they could bridge on to a Regents institution and ladder up into that healthcare area. Same thing with the CNA. They would be able to ladder up if they chose to continue their education. And so it was, it really wasn't this committee, but it was the institutions And part of what they were looking for was that flexibility as far as what are those regional needs. Any other questions? Seeing none, would you like to, Senator Dietrich, would you like to move your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move my motion.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Committee, do I have a motion on House Bill 2039 or House Bill 2085? I'll go ahead and make a motion on House Bill 2085, creating the Students' Right to Know Act to provide information on post-secondary education. Thank you. Second from Senator O'Shea. Is there discussion on that?
I would just like to, Madam Chair, sorry.
That's fine. Senator Dietrich, we're good.
This is a very good bill. It's one that we talked about last year in our committees in the House, and I would strongly recommend that we pass this out. It's good information, it's available, and will be very helpful, I think, in the long run.
I would agree. What I appreciate most is that you've got K through 12 working with higher ed to make this happen, and it dovetails specifically with that individual plan of study. And so for us to be able to, from the higher ed standpoint, to be able to provide resources so that that plan of study is useful and helpful, helps to keep it from being a stagnant requirement from the state board. Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will say that I was a little bit cautious when this bill came up, so I actually did go on site and look it up and did some comparisons of degree areas. And so I did, it does, as Senator Dietrich said, and you have said, it does provide a lot of great information. I think it's a great resource.
Thank you very much. And I think that was the importance of, we just kept asking questions and we got more information and made it, it had been vetted last year, but certainly not on the Senate side. So I think that was helpful. Are there any further comments or questions? I am not seeing any. I guess I will move my motion. All those in favor say, second. Second from Senator Dietrich. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes. Committee, what is your wish on House Bill 2039 requiring students to pass an American Civics test? It is. It is. It's requiring students to pass American Civics test in order to graduate from high school. Yes. Senator Clues.
How does this bill work with like someone who's got a GED, want a GED? Do they have to do that too then?
They did not address that. It was simply if a student was graduating from one of our public institutions. I do know, at least I got this feedback from the Department of Education, so our accredited private schools, they would be following these guidelines as well, if it were enacted. Senator Straub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a question, just a comment. Since we already require a civics or government class to get a high school diploma in Kansas, it only makes sense to also have a test for that to determine what is actually being taught in our civics and governments class. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have a motion yet on this bill. Did you want to make that motion?
I will do that. I move that we pass House Bill 2085.
Nope, 2039.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at wrong notes. Yes, House Bill 2039. Looking at the paper, not the screen.
Okay. Do I have a second? I have a second from Senator Gossage. So let's have some more discussion if the committee would like to. Yes, Senator Petty.
I think this, somewhat to the point that was just mentioned by Senator Straub, We do have a credit requirement. It is a year-long course, government is. There are 7 standards that government instructors have to use within their educational format for their classrooms. I think we had excellent testimony from outstanding government teachers pretty much saying, if you want me to dumb down, that's what you're asking me to do when you're saying to teach to test. And here's an interesting little side note. So I have an intern this year, and she's at Washburn, and if you have interns, you know, we haven't had them for very long this year. So I did ask her the other day, because she is only here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I said to her, I said, hey, we had this hearing in this bill. And she said to me, she said 2 years ago, she helped her own father take a study for the naturalization test. And so I said to her, I said, so, and she's a sophomore, so, you know, she hasn't been out of high school very long. So I said to her, I said, so how do you feel about if you had been required when you were in high school to have taken this test? And I said, would you have felt that you had learned more by taking this test, or whatever, what the curriculum was? And she's from Wichita. I can't tell you for sure which of the high schools, but she's from Wichita. And she said, you know, I take a test and I study for the test, but I don't necessarily retain from the test. So if we're really, and the representative that brought this bill forward, his intentions are good, but if we're really wanting our students to learn about government, that involves involvement and action and doing something. And many of us here, I can't speak for all of you because we all had different paths, but you know, I'm not sure that every one of us has been immersed in the governmental process since we were in high school. We might have known the three sections of government, but we might not have known a lot of other things. And like, for example, I'm sure how many times you've ever asked, and has somebody said something to you about your office, and you've said, you know, do you know how many people are in the Senate? They have no idea. Do you know how many people are in the House? They have no idea. Or they might think you're in Congress. Is there anybody here that's happened more than once? So it doesn't matter what part of the state you're from. I'm just saying, it's not because that citizen that's talking to you isn't informed. It's just that it's not part of their daily life as it is for you and I. So I don't see this being beneficial for our students. I don't see it improving the learning environment, but I personally took the time to go to Kansas Can and look at those standards. And that's what I think is important. And the fact that we do have this as a requirement in high school to get a credit and for it to be a year-long course. So we have our students, we have the opportunities within our schools. We have that happening in different ways, because unlike some states, and Senator, you asked that question about whether we had one book in Kansas. We don't. We don't have that for any level, but some states do. And guess what? Texas gets to dictate a lot about what the curriculum are, because they have one set of standards, or one curriculum that they deal from. So I think we have a great education system in Kansas, and I hate to see us working on doing anything to dumb it down. So I oppose this.
Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would echo a lot of what we heard from Senator Petty. I actually took the civics test on Sunday night with my family to see how my kids would do. And I have sat, both of my kids took AP, so APUSH and AP Government, and I saw them engaged in those classes. And I know the intent of this bill is that we want our kids to be engaged in government, and I absolutely support that. And actually, I had a meeting with 2 freshmen at Shawnee Mission West this morning on virtual, and they were like, would you do a class or come and talk to our group and talk about how to testify in committee, engaging in the process. And I think that is a better approach because you're going to give them the experience, and whether it's a virtual testimony or coming in, they're engaging in the process. And I really feel that test, so many times our kids are just trying to study to pass the test, and they really miss how this can impact their life. And I would rather see us give our teachers more opportunities to engage in an experience or something other than just a test, because I know we all want our youth more engaged in the process of what we do here. But I don't think this is the best approach.
Senator Straub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It sounds that Senator Petty's intern has had very good history teachers, and I'm sure there are many other good history teachers across the state. I likewise had excellent government and history teachers. And I liken the two as this one and the same, because in a small school, they are the same teacher. But I definitely think this doesn't do anything to dumb down education, but actually set some guidance for our educators in what to teach in those courses. Because we don't require a certain textbook, this helps provide some guidance on some of the basic principles to teach. And, you know, we have our very own state assessments that we do not compare Kansas children to any other state in the nation, because we have our own state assessments. So if it's okay for us to develop our own state assessments, then I think it's perfectly acceptable for us to adopt the naturalization test that's given across the nation for a high school diploma in Kansas. So I don't think this does anything to dumb down education, but actually just gives some more guidance to some of the great history teachers and government teachers that we have in our state. Thank you.
Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was trying to go through my notes too. Is the fiscal note on this still 400,000? I don't recall if the revisor or someone could help us with that.
Perhaps the revisor could.
It's around 400,000 perhaps. So,
This one
there,
has
Tim?
not,
Okay.
this one has not changed. It is still 400,000.
And what do they attribute the 400,000 to again?
printed cost.
Go ahead. Senator Straub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did pull up the fiscal note in the original copy. It says an estimated cost of $10 per test, and they're estimating approximately 40,000 tests would be administered each year.
Yes, Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So last year when we were talking about this, the cost of it was somewhat daunting for sure. But the other thing was when we're teaching our government classes or social studies classes or American history classes, we don't just have kids memorize facts and then regurgitate them. And that's kind of what that immigration naturalization test is asking them to do. And you must pass it as a graduation requirement. And we don't have any other test that we administer that's required for graduation. So that's 2 or 3 reasons why I'm very hesitant. I love civics, and when I was in school, I know we're not supposed to possibly talk about our own personal experiences, but I actually had a class called civics, and it was a great class, but now all those kinds of content that we learned in that class are now folded into American government, and you must take that to the class, and you must pass that class as part of your credits that you earn in high school. So we have the mechanism, and if the content of that naturalization test is important, I think it can be folded into the coursework that we already have. I hate to see it, though, as a graduation requirement, and the cost is still rather daunting. So thank you. That's just comments. Thank you.
Senator Clues.
Just a question, excuse my ignorance, but since this is a requirement and they take it, they don't pass it, what are their options from there as to whoever?
Well, one of the things that's been discussed, and I think it came up in testimony, that it doesn't say that they can only take the test once. There's no requirement to only take the test once. So it would be similar to, you go and you take the driver's test. You don't pass it, guess what? You're not going to get a license. You're going to have to take it again until you get it right. And I think in most places, you have to wait 30 minutes before you can take it again. And then you're going to have to get in the car and drive also. So it's that option of having ample time to take the test. Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I seconded this motion because I wanted this discussion. And I agree with Senator Diedrich in that I would like to see them fold that into the curriculum. And I'm fully for, we have all kinds of tests in school. And we still have some regurgitation of things that we do. However, I would hope that by folding this in, they would invite, as Senator Holscher said, they would invite us, or forgive me, Senator Sykes, if they would invite us in to talk about these various issues and bring their government home to to Topeka or whatever, especially since right now they can't come and visit the Capitol. But I think this has been a lively discussion, and I'm not a huge fan of, you have to have this test, or I agree, having been a teacher, that sometimes this can cause students anxiety. Oh no, I have to pass this, so I'm just going to hurry up and work on that. But I would love to see the content, because I believe it was Senator O'Shea, when we had this hearing, who pointed out that they don't necessarily agree with the curriculum and the naturalization test. And I think more of that needs to be rolled into that. And I would like to see that happen.
I will say it was interesting to me during testimony. I have never, I was surprised to hear the aspect of, I see an assessment as an accountability. And I was surprised to hear testimony from teachers that they would have to dumb down what they do in the class to prepare for this test. I also felt it was contradictory because we did hear the comment about this is too high stakes for the students. And yet we're talking about taking a test to become a citizen of our country. That to me is pretty high stakes. So I felt that it was inconsistent what was being said. Having taught at the high school level, as well as teaching concurrent enrollment courses where the students earned college credit as well, there were outcomes that were expected. And it was up to me as the classroom instructor, as several others on the committee, how do you deliver that? And so to have be it project-based learning, are they going to give a presentation? Are they going to deliver a speech? What different pieces of fiction, nonfiction, would you have them reading to support, again, those outcomes so that they're prepared for an assessment? So I don't see taking the test as cumbersome or burdensome for teachers or for students, but I understand that that is a concern, particularly, for teachers we know in our smaller school districts that have multiple preps. I think it can be done. I don't think it's overly burdensome. Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I listen to the testimony and the discussion on this bill, it's concerning to me too, being an educator, that we don't understand the importance of providing a knowledge base and a foundation on which to build on those experiences. It would be so much more meaningful, I would think, if students had a basic knowledge of how our system works and those concepts before experiencing that, so they have a clue as to what they're experiencing. I heard repeatedly that, hey, my kids are engaged. That's great. You've got to have them engaged. But make no mistake, engagement does not mean that they're learning. I've seen plenty of classrooms where kids are engaged, but they might be doing something that's not academically rigorous or learning, but boy, they're having a good time. So I think we have to be real careful about equating engagement with actual rigorous learning. There was a time when in education we were very, very cautious about instilling our personal values into the classroom. And I think that's probably a concern, quite frankly. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on this issue. To leave it without any objectivity in our curriculum or coursework and make it all experiential, I would have some concerns about influencing and values being injected into a classroom. So that would be a concern of mine. And lastly, I will just say this concept of, well, it's going to take away time because we're teaching to the test. Good teachers do not ever teach to a test. They take the concepts that their students are going to be assessed on and they incorporate that into their learning in a meaningful way where the students, they don't drill and kill. Good teachers do not drill and kill. They're going to roll those concepts into the daily activities and make sure that their students are grasping it in a meaningful way that they retain that information. So just my thoughts on some of the conversation and testimony, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Petty.
Thank you. And we all have particular feelings here, and really nothing that's been said is wrong, because the reality is what the biggest difference is, as Senator Dietrich said, one, saying we're going to commit $400,000 to making a required test to graduate. So no longer is it just part of your curriculum, just as Madam Chair, you mentioned about different modes of going about the learning. It's no longer those different modes. It's now, oh, and by the way, you also have this high stakes test that you have to pass to graduate. And we don't have that in place in Kansas. We have credits, and we have a credit already in place for government. I looked back at some of the testimony, and I was impressed with the social studies teachers that were here. The one mentioning that, I can't remember which school district, I don't remember if it was Topeka or one of the Topeka school districts in the area, saying he's had students that have now prepared legislation and actually come and testified and have passed, and we've passed the legislation they brought forward. And some of us would not have seen it this year, but I am aware of at least one of those bills I can remember over the time I've been here. But even in their testimony, when they said, we agree on the need for an increased focus on civics education, we disagree that a basic multiple choice test will solve the perceived problem. And so we oppose the use of valuable time and resources focused on this type of assessment. I think that's kind of the crux of the problem. Crux of the issue. Whether, in fact, taking a multiple choice test, and I've got to be honest here and tell you that as I thought about this and it getting passed, there is nothing in this legislation, so this may cause some of you to like it better or like it less, but that, and I said this to my intern, in fact, that, I could say, as if I was a government teacher, to 3 students that are a team, you can work on this test together and discuss this test together. There's nothing that says, in the end, they would each be filling one out, but there's nothing that says you have to do it individually or it has to be right yourself or anything like that. So, that is a pause. But as referred to, a good teacher is, if they're going to be required to have this as a requirement for graduation, that good teacher is going to make sure that every piece of this is incorporated some way into the curriculum, and that does, in fact, the time you have. Because I didn't teach at the high school level, so I can't speak to the amount of time, but high school instructors know that they only have so many hours within that year or that semester to cover material. And then we often will say, did you cover this? And they'll say no, because they didn't have enough time to prepare. So anyway, I think that that's the high stakes. I mean, I guess if you like this, you must be saying that a test is somehow going to be indicative of what what those youth are going to do in the future. And I would say a test is not.
Senator O'Shea and then Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a hard one. If it were me, I would have stressed about it, the test, studied hard for the test, probably gotten an A, and then forgotten everything. So to me, a test is not an answer to challenges. I was a little frustrated that a lot of the resources I was looking at on the website and a lot of what I thought the teachers were talking about were civics. And then I think what the test is trying to address is government. And just some of the black and white, some things are black and white, right? What it means to be a citizen, what it means to pay your taxes. And we as citizens don't get a choice on a lot of those things. I think sometimes people think you do. And so I do like that there's obviously a concern from society that our students learning government. And so I like the effort, but I agree that the test and then the graduation requirement, I just don't think it's the right vehicle. Thank you.
Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One other thing I'd just like to mention is the core purpose of, I taught high school, is to prepare our students for life beyond high school, right? And in life, we have high-stakes tests. If you go on to any kind of profession, you're going to have high-stakes tests. Like it or not, remember it or not, I had to take the LSAT. There's all kinds of for licensing requirements, even in, career and tech ed, you have to take high-stakes tests. In information technology, you have to pass Microsoft, exams. Life is full of those high-stakes tests, and I think helping our students learn those skills to study and be able to do those high-stakes tests might be a valuable skill, and I would just like to add that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Straub. I'm not seeing any more questions, no more comments. Did you want to move your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move my motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? I am not certain, so I'm going to have to call for division, please. So would the ayes please raise your hands? Okay, and the noes? Okay, I'll be the tiebreaker, and I'm an aye. I'm not worried about there being a test. So it does pass. Now, one thing I know that we do need is that recommendation. So what we have heard from our reviser, from Tamara, is that we pass the motion on HB 2287 to pass it out of, or to amend it. But now we need a motion to pass it favorably out of committee. So, Senator Dietrich, I will turn to you again.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I would move that we pass out a substitute for Senate Bill 43 favorably out of committee. Is that the correct motion?
I think it would be the Senate substitute for House Bill 2287, correct?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. I would move that.
Okay, so I have a motion to pass out Senate substitutes for House Bill 2287. I have a second from Senator Petty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are now official and legitimate on that. Are we okay on our other two bills that we have had moved? There we go. Committee, we are adjourned.